Hey guys, Travis from Clark Toys, and I have a very special guest today. Our Ed is our next door neighbor. He's an attorney from next door, and first met Ed in my office. I think you came in and you were upset about the parking spaces. I think you wanted to know who was parking in your spaces. It wasn't us, but that's why you came in. But then I had all the Packers stuff, and I had all the collectibles. You started looking around, and I don't think you cared about the parking spaces anymore. You started talking about Notre Dame and football and college sports, and it turns out that Ed was on the last team at Notre Dame to wear leather helmets. And Ed, so I asked Ed if he would be willing to be on a video with us, and he said yes, but I said, well, you got to bring your helmet, but I've seen it on his desk in a glass case, and then he came in with the helmet outside the gate. I was like, Ed, I thought you'd leave it in the case, but you said you haven't worn this for 60 years, but this is the helmet from your freshman year at Notre Dame. So tell us about that team and that helmet. Unbelievable. You haven't had that on in 60 years?
60 years.
Unbelievable. Well, I hope it stays together in good shape. You can get it back in your glass case. But tell us about that team a little bit and your experience at Notre Dame.
In 1887, 1886, my grandfather, Jean-Baptiste Prudhomme, and my great-uncle Ed Prudhomme went from the Natchitoches, Louisiana on the Cane Bayou up to Notre Dame to study telegraphy, which was like computer science today. And Notre Dame's first football team was in 1887, and my great-uncle Ed Prudhomme was the first captain. 1953, in the fall of 1953, or the summer, I ran on the practice field at Notre Dame. Lucky to be the last choice of Frank Leahy, this sort of a walk-on, half-scholarship person, and Frank Leahy. We didn't realize it was going to be his last year of coaching, but it was. And some of the real greats, Guglielmi, Johnny Latner, Neil Warden, all Americans were all there, and here I was. I mean, it's sort of like a giant midget, I guess it was, there among all those great football players. We were the last class to wear the leather helmets. The next year from then on, the plastic helmets were the standard. And very few of the players wore any nose protection, anything, or front protection. There was a little funny little case in the dressing area, in the dressing rooms, locker rooms, where you had a little thing. So many guys took out their appliances from teeth that had been knocked out. Appliances, they had their own little drawer they put their teeth in. Interesting times, certainly different than today.
So you were when you wore this helmet specifically, you were a freshman?
I was a freshman.
Gotcha.
Sophomore, I think even the spring training we had then the plastic helmets, even in the first year. We were the last group to wear them.
And when you came in my office that first time, and we've become friends since, and I appreciate when you stop in and tell us stories, so it's been great. But one of the things you noticed was Paul Hornung up on the shelf behind you. I had this Paul Hornung, and you started to talk about the team, and he was on the freshman team with you. You were freshmen at the same time.
He was been a great athlete in Louisville, Kentucky, and he came to Notre Dame both on a football and a basketball scholarship, two sports. He had one of his best friends did not get a scholarship to Notre Dame, had gotten several other scholarships, Cheryl Sipes. And Paul, I always appreciated Paul because Paul says, I won't go unless you'll give Cheryl a scholarship. And they gave Cheryl a scholarship. Man, he was on the squad there with us at Notre Dame. Paul was very interesting, big, good-looking 18-year-old guy. Could do everything. In fact, 4 years later, excuse me, 4 years later, He was a Heisman Trophy winner, and the only Heisman Trophy winner to ever be on a losing football team.
So he was a senior when he won the Heisman Trophy.
Correct.
And you played into your sophomore year, but got hurt. You said.
Yes, early in the fall, and I was a scrub. Had one of the better seats in the stadium, but still, I did run on that field, and that's always was a memory for me. Harding, very interesting, tremendously talented, many ways. I remember one incident. Harding kicked. I kicked a little bit in high school, and they saw me kick, and they said, "Why don't you hold for Harding when he kicks?"
Mm-hmm.
So I was holding for Harding and doing spring training our freshman year, after the freshman fall. Many of the NFL players would come down and just help in the training programs with the athletes. One of the men that came down was Lou the Toe Grossa, outstanding scorer in the NFL. I remember he asking Hornung, he said, "I understand you're going to kick for the Irish next year, both punt and place kick." "Yes, sir." He says, "Do you need any, think I can help you with any pointers?" Paul was an interesting person. He reached and pulled out of his pants, on his jockey pants, $5 bill. He says, "Tex," and that's sort of my nickname, holds my money, and he holds the balls when I kick them. And he says, I bet you I can kick as many as you can from the center of the field." I can still remember this day. They both kicked 3 out of 5 right through the goal post. Just 19-year-old boy and Grossa. Interesting times. He went on after that, was the #1 draft choice at Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be mistaken. Times have so changed. I think his starting salary was $60,000, and his bonus was $60,000. I mean, that's a lot different in
Unbelievable, yeah.
In today's marketplace. And he was such a great player for Green Bay, and that was an interesting times and for him.
And on that championship team, I think in '67, that I had that lineup from, that Hornung and Starr on, and Willie Davis is on that team. And you've mentioned you grew up with Willie Davis?
Yes, Willie and I both grew up in Texarkana. And Willie Davis played at Washington High, which was a segregated public black school, and I played at the Catholic school, Catholic High in Texarkana. Good friends. Severson was over, and guys had gotten scholarships and things, and a lawyer by the name of Boyd Tackett saw Willie out at the country club behind the bar. And he said, "Willie, what are you doing here?" He says, "You know, Mr. Boyd, my daddy's worked here forever, and he's got me his job here." And Boyd says, "Aren't you going off to school and play ball? You're one of the best players I've ever seen in my life." He said, "Mr. Boyd, I didn't get an offer any place." Boyd Tackett, the story I've been told, was going to Monroe, Louisiana the next day, and he told Willie and his dad to have him ready at 6 o'clock in the morning. He picked him up, and on the way to Monroe, he stopped at Grambling, and went in and knew the coach at Grambling, and very famous coach, and he told him, "This is one of the greatest athletes that I've known." And he says, "If he can't make the team, I'll pay for his room and tuition his first year of school." Well, Willie went on to be the first All-American at Grambling, drafted in the NFL, and was the first African-American captain of a NFL football team for Green Bay during their great days, and went on then to go to, I think, to L.A. and became in business and out in L.A. That was interesting times. I just been in the right places at the right time, and I mean, my whole life is like that, you know.
You didn't play with Willie Davis. You grew up with Willie Davis. I played against him though in high
And
school.
he went to Washington High in my town, and I went to the Catholic school. We
Gotcha.
played scrimmaged against each other 2 or 3 years.
Okay, and you didn't play with George Kuntz, but you knew George Kuntz, and you still know George Kuntz because he played at Notre Dame. And how did you become friends with him?
George lives here in Vegas, one of my really, really good friends, and just sort of Notre Dame guys, Domers, that we call ourselves, for drawing together. George was a very interesting guy. Single parent mother who was working 2 jobs so he could go to a good school, and he went to a Catholic school there in L.A. and Ara Parseghian had just come to Notre Dame, and Parseghian chose him as a scholarship, and he ended up an All-American at Notre Dame, and he was the number 2 draft choice. OJ was the number 1, and he was number 2.
O.J. Simpson went number 1, and Kuntz was the number 2 pick. Was that 1969?
69.
Who drafted him?
He was drafted by Atlanta. I think he played 5 or 6 seasons in Atlanta, and then he was at Indianapolis, I think. He was all pro. Every year he played. His last year he had a bad back injury and couldn't play anymore, but he was named all pro all 9 years.
All 9 years, but he's not in the Hall of Fame. But
No, but everybody thinks he should be in the Hall of Fame. He just didn't play on a winning team, and one of the reasons we hope this coming year that George does get selected to the Football Hall of Fame. You know, I was telling you, the 3 great coaches at Notre Dame of all times were Rockney, Leahy, and Parseghian, as far as those. Lots of guys. I knew Lou Holtz really well. I've known Lou for a long time.
Maybe
Thurman Thomas.
Thurman Thomas, yeah.
He was Thurman Thomas's football coach in high school, and every year Thurman would come to have a beer with Rex at Christmas time.
Wow.
And he would say to Rex, Coach stays. He said, but for you, I might be in prison right now.
Wow.
And when he was inducted to the Hall of Fame, he invited Rex and my sister to sit with his mama when he was inducted. And I always think that was
that's awesome.
just a great tribute,
Right.
there. But he is somebody. Interesting thing though, in y'all's love of this, there are certain people who are not only great athletes, but they bring something to the communities. Thurman, stayed. They wouldn't let him leave Buffalo. He was just so loved up there, and just so helpful.
Now, when he won the Heisman,
He was
his
the
senior. He was a senior.
Yes, and he was the only person to ever win the Heisman that played on a losing football team.
Okay, that's interesting.
Wow.
Anything like that you wanna say, just drop those facts. And you knew Willie Davis, or
I grew up with him, played with him.
So one thing that was really great you did was put that on.
Water out of it. Just get this set up
I bet I look horrible.
That's great. It's
right.
awesome.
Hold on.
And you probably take your glasses off to try that, huh?
Yeah.
But that was great. We all thought that was funny. I mean, and the fact that you haven't had it on for 60 years, so
It's incredible.
we want to do that like right away, and then you could take that off and put your glasses back on. But it was great that you put it on. And I was like, oh, it's fragile. I can't believe you don't have it in the case. So I'm just gonna introduce you, and you were a member of the last team at Notre Dame to wear leather helmets, correct?
Frank Leahy's last year. Frank Leahy, Coach Leahy's.
Oh, okay.
Frank, Rockney and Leahy, Parseghian are the 3 super greats of Notre Dame coaches. And Leahy was after World War II and all the championships at Notre Dame and all the bowl games and everything.
Okay. Were you there during his Heisman Trophy season, or he came?
We were freshmen together.
You were freshmen together.
And then, I got hurt bad my sophomore year, and I left there.
So they wore leather helmets your freshman year or sophomore year?
I was on the squad my freshman and sophomore years.
And they still wore leather helmets your sophomore year?
No.
Okay, so you were a member of the last team in your freshman year when they wore leather helmets. He wore a leather helmet.
Yeah.
Then the next year he had regular helmets, and you
Yeah.
did too.
Yeah.
And you did hold for him the second year in games. You held for him, or just
At
practices? Okay. And you were a linebacker?
Yeah.
Other
When I got hurt,
story.
again, so small, and yeah, you got to realize the guys hit me. I mean, they knocked the shit out of me. A lot of your people are good, and I have never been to your website. You'll have to show me how to do that. Do people go and watch these things there?
Yeah, we have
Facebook, yeah.
30,000 people.
Really?
Don't get
Almost
nervous.
40,000.
But they watch this?
Yeah, we've had total views? We've had over 100,000 views on.
You need to get
videos.
Kuntz in here.
Yeah, we want to.
Because, Kuntz can tell about Parsegian. And a lot of people know Parsegian a lot more than they know Leahy and Hornung and things like that, and
Specifically, I was thinking, just since you, Paul Hornung, if we could bring, so we talk about the helmet, playing with him, I say, and you played with Paul Hornung, I'm gonna bring that in, and then you can tell your text holds my balls. It's fun.
oh, I don't believe I'll say it.
It was funny.